Welcome back to NUICfootball.com. I am your host, Kyle Kampmeyer. We move into week 5 where we begin to see more separation between the contenders and the pretenders. And looking back at week 4, it did bring us some good games to allow us to help look at that playoff picture. Polo had to battle back to beat Ridgewood 48-44 in a battle of top 5 teams in IFA action. We saw River Ridge outlast Blue Ridge by coming back from 2 different deficits to boost their playoff opportunities and keep them in the hunt. Fulton outlasted Stockton before adding more late in the game to put them away to keep them in favor of a playoff spot. We continue to see Forreston grind out wins, with none of their wins coming by more than a 2-touchdown difference, but they took down EPC to remain unbeaten on the season. Galena returns from Michigan with a hard-fought loss, and with it could go their potential playoff opportunities. Somewhere in these coming weeks, they're going to have to find a way to win some games they are not favored to win. Looking ahead into week 5, we do have a couple games for you to keep your eyes on. The first one's going to be St. Teresa versus Galena-Winslow. While this game lost the excitement it originally generated, featuring the Class 1A and Class 2A champions from last year, there's another reason to pay attention to this one, and it's the first of 2 litmus tests that we're going to have in order to compare the favorite in 1A South in Belleville, Althoff Catholic, to that of the 1A North favorite, which are the Galena-Winslow Panthers. Althoff beat St. Teresa in week 2, 46-13. The other game that's going to help us see the comparisons between these 2 games is both of them still have Du-Pec on their schedules. Stockton at EPC will be another game for us to keep our eyes on. Both teams have struggled to get wins, but have put up some good fights against good competition. For EPC, a loss is going to keep them out of the playoffs for the 4th consecutive year. And for Stockton, a loss all but eliminates them from playoff contention. It is a must-win game for both teams. Fulton at Dakota is going to shed some light on both teams' playoff chances. Fulton cannot afford to lose games that they are favored in, with Du-Pec and Knoxville looming ahead. Dakota has to find a W, as a loss here puts them in a win-or-go-home status from week 6 on. Amboy at Ridgewood will be sure to catch the attention of IFA as the Clippers face their first test of the year. Ridgewood is looking to bounce back from a disappointing loss to Polo last week, but has the opportunity to boost their playoff seed with a win. And finally, Orangeville at Alden-Hebron are must-win games for both teams. But the team with the most to lose are the Broncos, as a favorable schedule down the road should lead them back to the playoffs, provided they take care of business. The Little Giants begin to face the harder part of their schedule, and a win over Orangeville will help boost their confidence. We're going to cover all these games and more next.
This NUICfootball.com production is powered by Lemon's Ambulance Service in Lena, Illinois. We always plan for the expected, but sometimes we need to plan for the unexpected. Lemon's has been serving Stevenson and Joe Daviess counties since 1869. Call someone you can trust in your time of need. Call Lemon's Ambulance Service. Rose Bowman and the Choice Realty team understand that buying or selling real estate is among the most important financial transactions of your life. They are dedicated to providing personal and thorough service with a sharp focus on their clients' needs. Their licensed staff looks forward to assisting you in any of the following areas: residential, condominiums, new construction, land, farms, commercial, investment, or leasing. Choice Realty is locally owned and operated with offices in Freeport, Galena, and the Galena territories. So when it's time to buy or sell, give Rose Bowman a call at 630-697-2480.
We're going to start off in 8-man, where the Polo Marcos will travel to River Ridge to face the Wildcats. Polo enters this game with a 3-1 record after they beat Ridgewood last week 48-44, while River Ridge enters at 2-2 after they came back to beat Blue Ridge 21-20. These 2 teams last met in week 7 last year, where Polo won 60-14. Things will begin to get easier for River Ridge after this week, But this will be another opportunity for the Wildcats to get prepared for a playoff opportunity. Polo, on the other hand, just needs to do what they do, and that's play Polo Marco football. This game features some star-studded players on both sides, none more so than Brock Soto of the Marcos. Last week he ran for 139 yards, caught passes for 219 yards, and scored 4 total touchdowns as Polo took down Ridgewood in a much-anticipated matchup. On the other side of the ball is Seth Nicholas. Seth has to be a guy that can help get the River Ridge rushing attack going. Last week he ran for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns, but without having George Winter in the backfield with him, it's becoming a little bit harder for the Wildcats to be able to do things offensively with the explosion that we thought that they would have at the beginning of the year. But Damon Dittmar has proven to be a guy that can help get the offense rolling through the air and on the ground as well, and we need to see more of that style of play from him and the rest of the Wildcats moving forward in order for them to realize what their end result can potentially be. For the Marcos, Carter Murdian had a big game last week, 312 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Both are presumed to be Polo's best passing outcomes in a single game in their school history. And then we've seen the big play of Noah Dewey come on as well, as he's caught the ball for 319 yards on the season with 5 touchdowns. Provided Polo can continue to do what we expect and play at the top of IFA, which they have since their inception in the league back in 2019. Polo enters this game as a 3-touchdown favorite and should win this game convincingly. Our next matchup is going to feature Hiawatha and Milledgeville. This game will take place in Milledgeville as the Hawks hit the road. Last week, Hiawatha beat Christian Life 46-6 to improve to 2-2. While Milledgeville moved to 4-0 with a 50-24 win over Orangeville. This is the first time these two teams have met in 8-man action, and the Missiles haven't scored less than 6 touchdowns in a game this season. Pretty sure that trend will continue here as Milledgeville will enter this game as a 48-point favorite. Being led by Connor Nye, who accounted for 4 touchdowns last week, and Micah Tom Smith, who recorded 3 touchdowns last week, the Missiles offense has been on fire as of late. And you add in big plays from Connor Johnson as well, the line play and the speed of the Milledgeville line, and then the team speed overall, both offensively and defensively. It's very easy to see why Milledgeville is one of the top 2 teams now in IFA, with a big opportunity to make more noise as the season moves forward. But this is just going to be another tune-up game for the Missiles. Their biggest game is going to come next week when they host Amboy. Orangeville Alden-Hebron is one of the games that we mentioned being a game to watch in our opening segment. Orangeville enters at 1-3 after they lost to Milledgeville last week 50-24, while Alden-Hebron enters this game with a 2-2 record after they beat Galva last week 53-6. These two teams did meet up last year in week 7, where Alden-Hebron came out as a 42-36 winner. Neither team has beat quality competition as of yet, but this game is going to be important for both in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. For Orangeville, they need to be able to avenge their loss from last year. Blake Folgate has been the workhorse for the Broncos, and he needs to continue to be that workhorse. He has to be able to be the leader of this team in order for them to continue to find success. If he goes down, the opportunity of Orangeville being successful is going to most likely go down with him. On top of that, Orangeville needs to find more opportunities and better protection for Cody Worth. That way he can try to get the ball downfield and get the playmaking abilities of Miklo Webb involved in the Bronco offense. Defensively, Orangeville has to be able to attack the line of scrimmage harder and faster. They're very soft up front on both sides of the ball, and they need to be able to get stronger and tougher up front and be able to anticipate at a much higher rate than what they currently are. However, like we said, the schedule does get easier for Orangeville, but at the same time, they have to be able to stay focused and not get overconfident in their abilities. With that said, Orangeville will enter this game as a 23-point favorite to win, but they have to make it happen first.
Our 8-man game of the week is brought to you by Best Realty. Best Realty has been helping Northern Illinois tackle their real estate needs since 1990. Whether you're buying or selling in the market for residential, commercial, or acreage, they'll help you get the best deal. Call the Best Realty team at 815-248-3408 or visit them online at bestrealtyproperties.com.
Our Best Realty 8-man game of the week takes us to the Cambridge Bowl, where Ridgewood will host Amboy. Amboy will enter this game 4-0 after they had a forfeit win over Quest Charter Academy last week, and Ridgewood enters at 3-1 after they lost to Polo 48-44. This is the first time these two teams have met in 8-man play, and for the Clippers, it provides them their first test of the season when they travel to number 4 Ridgewood. The Spartans have shown that they belong in the top 4, and now it's their time to take a look to see if they can topple number 1. Amboy is going to enter this game as a 16-point favorite, but like last week, Ridgewood entered that game against Polo as a 16-point favorite, and we all saw how that went. The Spartans are led by Riley Couture. Last week, he had 94 yards passing for a touchdown. He had 94 yards rushing for another 3 touchdowns. In the backfield, Roy Sandberg rushed for 95 yards and a touchdown. And then Preston Moriarty gained 63 yards receiving with a touchdown and added another 54 yards rushing on the ground. Those 3 guys have been the biggest playmakers that we've been focused on and talking about for Ridgewood since the kickoff of the season, and they continue to be the guys that produce for the Spartan offense. On the other side of the ball, Amboy comes very loaded with a dual threat backfield with Landon Welchel and Quinn Luffelman. Welchel's rushed for 318 yards and 6 touchdowns on the season, while Leffelman has added 241 yards with 4 touchdowns on the year. You add in the Admiral, Brennan Blaine, who has picked up 242 yards receiving with 5 touchdowns, and then the play of quarterback Eddie Jones, who has thrown for 324 yards and 7 touchdowns on the season, while going 9 for 10 in passing opportunities. Amboy is very explosive. Brennan Blaine very well could be the best overall football player in all of IAFA. He's been proving it year in year again. You have the defensive line play that is led by Leffelman and Blaine. You have the offensive line play led by Trey Payne and Landon Montavon. Amboy is a wrecking machine right now, and this is one of 2 tests. Their next test is going to come next week when they go to Milledgeville. They can't be overlooking this game, though. If they want to stay number 1 and have the opportunity for that number 1 seed, they have to be able to take care of Ridgewood this week. On the other side for Ridgewood, if they can take down number 1, it could be smooth sailing to an 8-1 record and a top 4 seed in the playoffs as well. It's going to be a great game to watch. Like I said, Amboy comes in as the favorite in this game. Right now, the Clippers would be my pick to win.
This portion of our broadcast is brought to you by Diedrich Epoxy Flooring. Serving Northern Illinois and Southern Wisconsin, Diedrich Epoxy is the source for all of your epoxy needs. Give Diedrich Epoxy Flooring a call today at 815-239-1158 for your free estimate.
We will move over to the 11-man side of the NUIC, where our first matchup is going to feature West Carroll at Forreston. West Carroll enters this game with an 0-4 record after they lost to Du-Pec last week 55-0, while Forreston comes in perfect at 4-0 after they beat EPC 34-20. Last year, these two teams met in Week 6, where Forreston won 60-6. One of the facts about this game is that West Carroll has yet to score a single point against an NUIC team. Forreston, on the other hand, hasn't scored less than 3 touchdowns in a single game this year. Forreston is going to be the heavy favorite in this game. They come into this game as 54-point favorites, which ironically is exactly the score differential which they won by last season. Led by Owen Mulder, Alex Raya, Micah Nelson, and Caleb Sanders, the Cardinals still need to be able to find a way to continue to work and develop more of their run skills in order to be a true threat moving forward. We've seen the play of quarterback Brady Gill, and while we feel he can be a good quarterback down the road for the Cardinals, so far this season they have not been able to rely much on him. And some of that's probably due to the youthfulness of his ability. First year varsity quarterback, he's only a sophomore, a lot of room to grow. And with that, the Forreston Cardinals are a running team, and they've been fortunate enough to be able to do different things to get more prepared for what's to come ahead. As we said in the preseason, Forreston's number one goal, be the team that beats Leamon Winslow and compete for a state championship. That's the Forreston way. It's been the Forreston way for quite a few years now. And to be quite honest, when you're playing at their level, that should be your only goal. Do what you can to play at the best level that you can and compete for state titles. For West Carroll, we've seen some great play out of Raef Schinken, Pickard, but with that, he can't be the only guy carrying the team. They need to be able to find other ways to move the ball. Clearly, it's been more of growing pains for West Carroll. They're still a very youthful team. However, when you're in the NUIC week to week, it's going to be a battle when you're talking about a conference that continues to push out state champion after state champion after state champion year after year for the better part of the last 20 years. There's not much to say in this one other than that Forreston will win this one big. Du-Pec at Galena should be a matchup that we expect to see what we think could be somewhat of a close game. Du-Pec enters this game at 4-0, while Galena enters at 2-2. Last week, Du-Pec beat West Carroll 55-0, and Galena went on the road to Saranac, Michigan, and came home with a 32-20 loss. Last year, these two teams met up in Week 8, where Du-Pec won 35-6. This is the first of 5 continuous weeks where Du-Pec's schedule will begin to get harder. Also, Galena has a rough path ahead as well that will require some upsets to happen on teams that they're not favored against in order for the Pirates to find themselves back in the playoffs. For the Pirates, they're going to have to be able to control the line of scrimmage the best that they can. They need to be able to get the playmaking abilities of Miles Schumacher and Jack Reese moving in the backfield so that they can establish a run game. At the same time, to keep Forreston off balance, they have to be able to get Roman Romer going with one of his primary targets in Owen Hafel as well. If they can do that, they might be able to see some success. What we have seen out of Du-Pec is they had a struggle in Week 1 with Stockton, And since then, it's been an absolute offensive explosion against EPC, Dakota, and West Carroll. Now, West Carroll was obviously one of those games that you definitely expected that out of. Their game with Dakota was our game of the week. We felt that that game could be better than what it turned out to be. And as it looks and appears, Du-Pec may be finding their rhythm and starting to ignite that high-octane offense that we thought that they would have. With that, Galena has to be able to slow that down. If Galena cannot slow down the Du-Pec offense, there's no way that they're going to have a chance to win this game because Du-Pec's defense will make plays, create turnovers, and create turnover on downs or force you to punt at different times. So with that, Du-Pec or Galena has to keep Du-Pec from just going all out in this game. Likewise for the Rivermen, continue to make the plays that you have with Cooper Hoffman, Jalen Now, Connor Hughes, and Drew Williams. They're going to have to start to get Jackson Diedrich back into things. I know he got a little banged up earlier in the year, but, you start getting some of these tougher competition games in front of you. You got to start utilizing your different weapons and start feeling out what is going to make you successful as you start to move towards the playoffs and get prepared for that playoff run. With that said, the Rivermen also do need to find a way to get the run game going besides the utilization of Hoffman alone. They're going to have to be able to establish that run game much like they had with A.J. Mulcahy last year. Connor Hughes is that guy, but they got to get him going. Jalen Now's been able to get some things going as well with his speed. But, we're starting to see this Du-Pec offense heat up. So this will be an interesting game. Du-Pec is going to enter this game as a 21-point favorite. It probably will go in the way of Du-Pec. That's my pick to win in this one. Stockton at EPC is one of those games that we mentioned could be a good game as well. Stockton enters this game at 1-3 after they lost to Fulton 40-16, while EPC enters at 0-4 after they lost to Forreston 34-20. Last year, these two teams met up in week 2 where Stockton won 26-6. Coming into this matchup, both teams are going to be desperate for wins to keep their playoff hopes alive, but an EPC loss will help keep the Cats at home. Or will keep the Cats at home. Likewise, Stockton has to be able to get a win here because if they get another loss, they might as well all but be done with their playoff opportunities and chances as they got some other games coming up too that are going to push them to that limit. Right now, though, despite sitting at 1-3, the Blackhawks do look like a team that can still make a playoff run. Stockton needs to be able to get a good mix of their run and pass going with Kobe Tucker. While he's still new to the position, he's definitely looked good at different times for the Blackhawks in that passing game, especially when he can connect with Brady Haas. Likewise, in the run game, they have to be able to establish better overall line play in order to get Carl Hubb and Tanner Guile into the second level. If they can do that, Hubb's got the speed to be able to outrun a lot of people in the NUIC. And Tanner Guile, while he's not very big size-wise, he runs with a lot of power and has a lot of strength to where if you can get him to that second level, now he's taking on DBs and corners, he's going to have a better opportunity of running them over. EPC, on the other hand, they have to get that run game going with Jackson Kemple and Draven Zier. They've been able to get one of them going at different times, but neither one of them have been able to really get things going collectively together. That goes back to line play as well. You have to be able to execute on their line. If you can do that, you're going to create the holes that you need to get these running backs through to get to that second level and chip off that 4, 5, 6, 7 yards a carry in order to keep drives moving downhill. Likewise, what we've seen out of EPC is the play at quarterback of Jackson Corbin. He has done a decent job helping lead this offense for the Wildcats, and one of his big playmakers is Ethan Petta. If the Wildcats can find a way to get more things going through the air while establishing the run game at the same time, we can see them continue to put up good fights and potentially start changing those close losses into wins in their favor. I mean, this is a team that we did pick to go 4-5 on the year and miss the playoffs, but nonetheless, they were a team that we expected to be in the hunt for a playoff opportunity. While the record does not speak to it, if you look at the final scores of a lot of the games that they've played, they've definitely been in those games, with the exception of the game with Du-Pec. So, you take a look at those things. EPC has a very good shot at this. Stockton's going to enter this game on the road as a 10-point favorite. I do like Stockton in this game, but this could be a big explosion game here either way. When the schedules first came out last year, this was a game that we expected to be marked on everybody's calendar as it featured last year's Class 1A state champ versus last year's Class 2A state champ when Lena Winslow travels down to Decatur to play St. Teresa. Lena Winslow is going to enter this game at 4-0, but St. Teresa is going to enter this game 0-4 as they've had a very daunting schedule to start the year. Being an independent this year as they were kicked out of their conference, they've had to find some other teams to play, and with it, they've played some big teams. Last week, Lena Winslow beat Dakota 52-8, while St. Teresa lost to Tolono Unity 42-21. Unity is one of those schools that currently is ranked in the top 6 in Class 3A. They've recently been in the Class 3A state championship game. Clearly, this game does not look like it's going to be a good one, but it will provide us that litmus test that I was talking about in the opening to show us a comparison of Lena Winslow to Belleville-Althoff Catholic, who everybody in the southern half of the Class 1A bracket is very concerned about with their 2 D1 potential kids playing at the defensive tackle and running back positions, and the overall size of Althoff as well. With that, Althoff did beat St. Teresa 46-13 back in week 2. This is week 5. Things do change, but one thing we know for sure is we have not seen Lena Winslow do anything out of the ordinary, with the exception of the fact that they threw their first pass of the season last week. Lena Winslow is going to enter this game as a 44-point favorite, led by Gage Dunker, who had 154 yards rushing last week with 3 touchdowns against Dakota. We're starting to see Coburn Lynch come on as another running back option. He ran for 66 yards and a touchdown last week. Continue to see Lena Winslow do what Lena Winslow does, and that is working on execution, line play, getting to the second level, and then defensively playing gap responsibility, stay-at-home type defense to limit mistakes. Lena Winslow should win this one big.
Our 11-man game of the week is brought to you by Best Realty. Best Realty has been helping Northern Illinois tackle their real estate needs since 1990. Whether you're buying or selling, in the market for residential, commercial, or acreage, they'll help you get the best deal. Call the Best Realty team at 815-248-3408 or visit them online at bestrealtyproperties.com.
Our Best Realty 11-man game of the week is going to feature Fulton at Dakota. Fulton enters this game with a 2-2 record after they beat Stockton 40-16, and Dakota is going to come in with a 1-3 record after they fell to Lena Winslow 52-8. Last year, These two teams met up in week 9 before both went on a quarterfinal run, and Fulton won 48-26. Since joining the NUIC, Fulton has beat Dakota in every matchup that they've had. Fulton came out of last week in a must-win game with a big win, but it does not stop now for the Steamers. They must continue to find ways to win ball games because one expected slip-up could cost them a potential playoff opportunity. Dakota, on the other hand, needs to turn things around. They're 1-3 as we expected them to be coming out of the preseason, but now it's their time to fight. Initially, we had them coming out 1-4, so on paper, this game still doesn't look like it matters as much as what the next 4 weeks will have. However, this is a game that Dakota's got to be able to win for them to be able to get back into that true playoff hunt. Fulton's going to enter this game as a 3-point favorite. For the Indians, they need to be able to find consistency in their run game. It's been pretty absent since that Fisher game. We need to be able to see players like Connor Matthews and Tristan Alexander and Jason Bowers really begin to get that rushing game going. So far in the year, Dakota's only rushed for 738 yards across 4 games. Granted, they've played arguably the top 3 teams in the conference each of the last 3 weeks. But when you're not competing with the top 3 teams of the conference, what's that say about your own team? You're either middle of the pack or you're less than mediocre. With that, they have to be able to get ways to get the ball moving. Nolan Mayberry's done a decent job playing quarterback this year, but they have not been able to effectively get the ball in the air and pass the ball. But as long as they can put together good schemes to get the ball on the ground moving, that would help open up different opportunities. On the other side of the ball is Fulton. They are going to be a more multi-dimensional type offense. They're going to spread you out. They can come in tight. They can get the run game going, but they too have had a lot of struggles in the run game to start these past 4 weeks in the season. However, the passing game has been something that's been getting picked up on as Don Kramer has thrown for over 500 yards through the first 4 weeks now of the season. Jimmy Crimmins and A.J. Boardman are the 2 guys that really need to lead the Steamer offense on the ground. At the same time, if Kramer can get the big play out of Balin Damoff, as we've seen at a couple different times this season, that's going to help open up even more opportunities to get Trevor Theismann and Jacob Hausengay into the passing game as well. And when you start doing that, you start seeing what we just saw last week against Stockton, where you begin to get the ball downfield, then it starts to open up that run game. We saw some good power runs out of Crimmins and out of Boardman in that game, despite the lack of yardage. They were running with some physical presence, and as long as they can continue to do that, we're going to see Fulton fighting and clawing their way to a respectable record and an opportunity at the playoffs. Again, big game for both these teams. Fulton comes in as a 3-point favorite. Right now, they are the hot team. They're my pick to win.
Our NUICfootball.com state rankings are presented by Leading Edge Fundraising. If you need to raise funds for new uniforms, tournament expenses, equipment, or more, look no further. Brandon Sharp at Leading Edge makes it easy for you and your team to have a fun and competitive way to raise funds for your program. Give Brandon a call today at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, your premier fundraising company.
It's time to unveil our NUICfootball.com state rankings as they are brought to you by Leading Edge Fundraising. We're going to start an 8-man where the number 1 team remains the same. The Amboy Clippers are 4-0 and retain that number 1 spot. Coming in at number 2 are the Missiles of Milledgeville as they too stay in that number 2 spot at 4-0. But once again, they're sitting right there with Amboy neck and neck, just about a vote away from being a tie for that number 1 ranking. Number 3 is Polo. After their big win over River Ridge, they moved back into that number 3 spot with a 3-1 record. And dropping down 1 spot to number 4 is Ridgewood at 3-1 with the loss. Staying at the number 5 spot are the Sabres of St. Thomas More, as they are 4-0. At number 6 is South Beloit, who comes in at 4-0. West Prairie is 4-0, and they claim the number 7 spot. Moving up to number 8 is Martinsville, as they are 3-1. Pawnee moves up to number 9, also at 3-1, and dropping down to number 10 are the Bearcats of Milford-Cisna Park, as they drop to 2-2. Other teams receiving votes are South Fork at 3-1, Flanagan Cornell Woodland at 2-2, and Bushnell Prairie City at 3-1. In Class 1A, number 1 is Lena Winslow at 4-0. Moving up to number 2 this week are the Mustangs of Morrison, as they are 4-0. Coming at number 3 are the Forreston Cardinals, as they drop 1 spot, but hold on to that 4-0 mark. And at number 4 is Althoff Catholic, as they drop to 3-1 on the year. At number 5 is Camp Point Central, as they are 4-0. And at number 6 is Greenfield Northwestern, also at 4-0. Moving up to number 7 are the Eagles of Hope Academy. They are 3-1. And coming in at number 8 after their big double overtime win over Rock Island are the Comets of Newman Central Catholic, as they improve to 3-1. At number 9 are the Steamers of Fulton at 2-2. And rounding out our top 10 are the Aurora Christian Eagles at 3-1. Other teams to receive votes are Stark County at 4-0, Leroy at 4-0, KZ Westfield at 4-0, Deer Creek Mackinac at 2-2, Gibson City Melvin Sibley at 3-1, Galena at 2-2, and Anawan Weathersfield at 3-1. In Class 2A, not a lot of changes here, so we'll just run it right down the board. Number 1, Royal Forsyth 4-0. Retaining spot, holding rank at number 2 are the Warriors of Athens at 4-0. Number 3 is Seneca at 4-0. Tri-Valley comes in at number 4 at 4-0. Bloomington Central Catholic is number 5 at 4-0. At number 6 is Knoxville at 4-0. Number 7 is Shelbyville at 4-0. Number 8 is Pana at 4-0. Rockridge moves up to number 9 at 3-1, and making their way into our top 10 for the first time this year are the Farmers of Farmington, as they are 4-0. Other teams receiving votes are Johnston City at 4-0, Mater Dei at 3-1, Moments at 4-0, and Quincy Notre Dame at 1-3. Class 3A, number 1, the Byron Tigers are 4-0. At number 2 are the Montini Catholic Broncos at 4-0. Number 3 is St. Joseph Ogden at 4-0. Coming at number 4 are the Tigers of Princeton at 3-1. At number 5 are the Rockets of Tolono Unity. They are 3-1. Moving up to number 6 are the Du-Pec Rivermen, as they are 4-0. And at number 7 is Wilmington at 3-1. Dropping down to number 8 after their loss last week is Williamsville at 3-1. And moving up to number 9 is the team that beat Williamsville, Olympia. They are 3-1. And rounding out the top 10 are the Stillman Valley Cardinals at 3-1. Other teams receiving votes are Roxana at 4-0, Chicago Phillips at 2-2, and Mount Carmel at 3-1. So that gives you a look at our NUICfootball.com state rankings presented by Leading Edge Fundraising as we head into Week 5.
Our NUICfootball.com Players of the Week is sponsored by our friends at Benchwarmers. Each winner receives an extra large pizza and a dozen boneless wings. Just stop in to claim your prize. Located in Freeport at 2143 West Galena Avenue, Benchwarmers is a great place to gather with friends to watch the big game. For American pub food and fun at its finest, check out Benchwarmers. And make sure you try the cheese curds.
Our Benchwarmers Player of the Week for 8-man for Week 4 goes to Polo's Carter Meridian. Meridian threw 15 completions on 23 attempts for 312 yards and 4 touchdowns as he helped lead the Marcos in a comeback win over Ridgewood, 48-44. Congratulations, Carter, on your Player of the Week nomination. And our 11-man Player of the Week goes to Fulton QB Dom Kramer. Kramer was 18 for 27 passing for 276 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also picked up 12 yards on the ground with another touchdown to help lead the Steamers over Stockton 40-16 to help keep their playoff hopes alive. Congratulations, Dom, on your Player of the Week honors. Well, that gives you a look at where we're at heading into Week 5. We do have some good matchups as we've discussed throughout this segment. Big games lying ahead as we continue to see the separation from the contenders to the pretenders. Still a lot of questions to be asked. We still have some teams that are sitting at 1-3 with the potential of an opportunity of making playoff runs. We have a couple teams at 2-2 that have also the same opportunity to make it to the playoffs, but face much tougher competition as the weeks move on. The IDFA scene is really starting to take fold as we're starting to see a separation between the top 4 teams and the rest of the pack. And you can even take a look at maybe even the top 2 teams, Amboy and Milledgeville, are just that much better than the rest of the field. But time will tell. We got some big matchups this week that are going to help lay that picture more clear for us as we begin to move forward. Either way, it's a great time of the year as we hit that midpoint week of the season. Get out to the games, root for your teams, and as always, root for the NUIC.